So I want to take this moment to record what I'm referring to as a stone, or an experience, a moment, a series of moments in which I know that God has shown Himself clearly in my life, shown an aspect of His character in my life, shown Himself as provider, as sovereign. And I know that it's essential that we take note of these things, whether we're writing them down, recording them. For me, I'm also using art as a way to capture these moments because life happens. And when we let those moments get too far removed, we lose the opportunity to use those moments to stir up our faith in moments when we need it. So, the one I'll start with, one of the most recent things was my loans were forgiven from my first attempt at grad school. So when I was about 24, I moved to DC with the intent to go to Howard University. I wasn't as thoughtful as I probably should have been in terms of like what major to choose. The major that I was interested in, that program was being revamped, but I felt that, please excuse the garbage trucks in the background if you can hear them. But I felt that in the moment, that was the season I was supposed to leave. I had taught for 2 years. I taught 6th grade and then I taught 3rd grade. I wasn't really happy. By the end of that 2nd year of teaching, I felt like I needed to go and do more, to learn more. And DC was that picture in my mind of that place where I could be in the atmosphere of Black and brown intellectuals who are learning and growing, going to seminars, and I just was excited about that thought. I had a different undergrad experience. I'm grateful for it and I love it, but it wasn't that. So I applied to go to Howard. I must have written down the wrong deadline because I was about to submit my application and realized that I was a month late. So just kind of walked away from the computer, the library, like, what now? And what happened was that I think I shared with someone who I consider like a mentor at the time, and they called me about 2 days later and they said they reopened the application. So I submitted it feeling like it was a godsend, the program that they were revamping. I didn't apply for that program. I decided to apply for a different one based off of undergraduate research. It's like, this topic, I've used it for undergraduate research. Hadn't taken one course in the area. I remember starting the program and having a moment where, they do the look to your left and look to your right. By the end of the program, somebody won't be here, not knowing that would be me. I remember being in one class with one professor who told me that I didn't belong there. And by then I had been there, I was passing. I had B's, they weren't A's, which is ideal for a graduate program. So that, that pushed me to continue, as well as working hard in school was also how I defined myself. What am I going to tell my family, the people who think that I'm here, I'm going to earn a degree, maybe even a doctorate, So pride, fear. I utilize loans both to pay for school and to supplement the cost of living. Every time I needed my Jeep fixed, every time I needed to fly home, those tickets came through money that was, from student loans. So I'm in graduate school. Debt is continuing to increase. I'm learning, I'm having experiences, I'm connecting. But most of my connection, that richness, that deep connection, came from my colleagues because I continued to teach. I ended up going back to the classroom. And my church family, being a part of a church that had a very strong young adult ministry. I started painting when I would come home from work, processing anxiety, processing, feelings of depression, processing just life. And then have an opportunity to transform art into postcards, which when I was a teenager, I used to want to work for Hallmark, make their art and write their poetry. So that's being produced in this season. Had an opportunity to host some paint and choose where I'm talking about the messages that I feel like I got from God through art, cultivating and holding space for other people to process life through art, to tell their story through art, without the limitations of having to be an artist, but to just leverage the process of painting to process life. It was there that I met my husband, and in our dating season, that's when I had started doing art shows. So I had a couple art shows, and just to be in the environment, like busboy and poets, going to spoken word nights, as well as just in that atmosphere. And so a lot of things are happening. Took flight lessons, took a train to Baltimore, just doing different things too, where God is doing a special work in me, cultivating pieces of me that needed to be in that atmosphere to bloom, to blossom, to grow, for me to realize that we're there. So by my second year, when you're supposed to be working on your thesis, graduating, I could not nail down a thesis. I was trying to make the program that I was in a program that it was not. I ordered all these different books that were not aligned with the program. Trying to make a thesis that felt more tangible, that felt more connected to the work I was doing actually in the classroom and in the community. But that's not the program that I was in. I had a really nice advisor. She stuck with me. I ended up doing an additional year of grad school, just undergraduate research. Well, maybe I can figure out a thesis while I'm just researching and working. And so what I did was spent a whole year, another year of debt, creating these projects, these ideas that had nothing to do, well, I won't say nothing to do. They just weren't strong. They weren't in alignment with really what the content of the program was. My professor, the one advisor I had in my corner, who I had a close relationship with, because everybody else was more distant. I was there for night classes because I worked full time. She was going on maternity leave after that year, so I ended up leaving school. I knew that I needed to end the program. And when I finally did and said that I was stopping, just this great sense of peace came over me. But it didn't make sense. You finished all your coursework, you passed, and you're stopping before you do your thesis. So I don't have a degree. But the school system I worked in, they honored my coursework. So I had a pay increase as if I had my master's. Everything seemed fine. Fast forward, I continued teaching, continued painting, continued growing in the community and relationships, get engaged, move to Georgia, get married, leave the classroom, have a ton of debt, and couldn't really, when I'm explaining to others why I don't have my master's or why so much debt, it was embarrassing to me. It would make me sick to my stomach. It was over $100,000 in debt. It wasn't like I was in positions that were making a lot of money either. So it was just a weight and a burden. Entered a space that was outside the classroom, still connected to education. A blessing of an organization to work for. Gave me time and space to transition, even though I had to deal with some of the insecurities that were built up around not finishing and having a lot of debt. Like, what did that mean? Who did that make me? What did that say about who I was? The HR director at the time kept encouraging me to go back to school, but I was burned. Like, one, I need money to go back. Two, I need a purpose and a reason. My initial reason, because I wanted to learn. Like, you can buy a book to learn. It's a much cheaper way. But there eventually came a time where I was going to have a different type of opportunity. And I started looking again and found a program that aligned. I got a couple of raises during that time. I got a promotion, and that was going to guarantee a higher raise too. And so I figured out a plan. In the midst of that time, I had reached back out to Howard to see, could I complete that program? Could I do it remotely? And by then it was almost like 12 years. So none of that coursework was still staying. I think it's like a 5-year time span. And then I felt sick. I didn't really want to be connected. I just had a sickly feeling about things. But for due diligence and, to honor the ask of my husband, I did reach out to see, can I complete this degree that I'd already started? So when that door closed, the door that opened was a program called Learning Leadership and Organizational Development. And it was in UGA's education program. And it just seemed to like align with the direction that I was going in. I was supporting the adults who were working with children. I'm focused on adult learning. I'm focused on leadership. These are the roles I'm moving into. And that program just seemed like it would undergird and be more practical. It was a phenomenal program. One of the most challenging times of my adult life, because by then I'm married and I have a young child. But finished the program in July, and I'm still working. The new school year started. I'm working at a school and go through that semester debating whether I'm going to walk in graduation that next December. I end up walking. We get through the Christmas holiday, the Christmas season, and in the process, somewhere in there, I think it was before grad school, I had applied for a loan forgiveness. Things just weren't aligned. I didn't have enough payments, even though I was paying on the loan. So even with each promotion and even with finishing school, there still was like this sick feeling in my stomach every time I thought about debt and how much I owed. But in January, I checked. I had a colleague, my husband was encouraging me to just go back and look at the documents. And I had a colleague who just kind of walked with me through that journey, of research, giving me information that she had found to help me to make sure that I'm dotting on my I's and crossing on my T's with the, public service loan. And she did it in such a way that despite how bad I felt and how insecure I felt about those loans, that I could just, face them. So fast forward, some of the loans got forgiven, but I still had like $90-something thousand worth of debt. And I thought that they weren't going to be forgiven by some document that I received, but I can't remember what day it was. It was like toward the end of December or early January. I received the notification that all of my loans had been forgiven. And I didn't really quite have the words. It wasn't like this, oh my God. That wasn't it. It was just this quiet kind of like, oh my God. Sovereign provider, my keeper. And Isaiah, I remember he used to direct me as I was growing up, especially when I was in my early 20s, to Isaiah 54, not just the no weapon formed against you shall prosper part, because I made decisions. Those were my incurring of debt. But there's another part that says that, he won't allow you to be put to shame. And when I say that God has shown himself as a redeemer, even the choices that I made that were hurtful to me, sovereign in terms of, I do believe I was supposed to be in Washington, D.C. during that time of my life, in the places I was in, meeting the people I met, doing the things that I've done, growing in different areas. Didn't make sense to be in a major that didn't make sense. Didn't make sense to stop after you finished and you're passing all your coursework. But that opened up a space of peace during my time in D.C. when I finally stopped and moved out of that major. That grad school was a vessel to get me there in a way that made sense, a way that helped me financially. But then there was a time that I needed to move, expand, have more capacity for the other things. Every car breakdown, which I had a lot of, they were covered. All the things that flourished during that time, the beginnings of art. And so now I look back, and for God to allow that debt to be wiped out, it was like, I got you. The times we were so worried, if you just continue to follow me, I have you. I even can take care of the mistakes you've made. And I don't think going there was a mistake, but just the incurring of so much debt, and so now, that was 14, it was a long period of time from me initially taking out debt to when my debt was removed. But what I'm drawing from that experience is that some things are not overnight, but you serve a sovereign God who cares about you, who's not going to let you be put to shame, who is your keeper. So you can keep going forward step by step, even when things are ambiguous, even when you don't know how things are going to work out, even when you feel embarrassed about certain things. You can keep going because your keeper is keeping you and walking with you. And he's sovereign. So although you can't see the end right now or how things are going to come to fruition, you can entrust yourself, and you can entrust your situation. You can entrust your future to him. So right now I hold on to that. And there's some things that look funky right now in life, but I am entrusting myself. I'm entrusting that to him. He woke me up this morning with the word that he is my source and he is my shield. So I have all these years of experience of him proving himself to be that, even in routes that I would not have thought of, like, ooh, this don't look like revision. My car keeps breaking down, but it kept getting fixed too. So I'm standing on the word that he gave me this morning. He is my source and he is my shield. And I'm holding on to that stone of that experience of how he's brought me to and from and through those DC years, completely paid off the debt. I now have a master's degree in the area that makes sense for the work he's leading me to do. And that was paid for without debt. And so I just hold that stone dear to my heart. That's my reminder. I have proof that God is sovereign. I have proof that he's my keeper. So now, in light of the situations in front of me, I'm not moving to the right or to the left. I'm just putting one foot in front of the other with my hand in his, because he is my keeper. He is my source. He is sovereign. He is my shield. And everything's going to be okay in his hands.